Hey everyone, this is Jackie with Jackie Sweet Shapes. We are about to get started with our live class. We are doing beginner fall themed cookies. So we will start in about 5 minutes. So I know that we have a few people hopping on. So if you're scrolling through Facebook and you happen to see this, just know that this is going to be a live class in 5 minutes. And if you're hopping on and you are taking the class, hello, welcome. And let me know in the comments section who you are, say hi, because I will not be able to see you unless you comment. So we'll get started in about 5 minutes. So hang tight. You can feel free to comment if you would like to. How's everybody doing? We got a couple people on. Hello, Jessica. My sister's name is Jessica. She's also taking the class. So, I think she's got a little baby, so I don't know if she is going to be taking it tonight. Oh, great. I'm doing well too. We kind of had a crazy week, a crazy day, but you know, I'm happy that I'm here. That's why I got started a little bit late. We had to take our dog to the vet today. Her stomach was hurting and we didn't know what was going on, but then when we got there they were like, oh, she's fine, nothing's wrong. So, not sure what was going on. Hey guys. Hello. Wow, lots of people hopping on. Yay. Are you guys excited to take this class? This is a beginner class, so I'm gonna be going pretty slow. I'm going to explain a lot of stuff. So if this is your first time, that's great. This is a class for you. Tomorrow we have an advanced class, which is going to be a lot more detailed. And so if you like this one and you want to take harder classes, that will be an option in the future. So, but today's class is going to be simple, fun, very beginner. Hopefully, nobody feels stressed or overwhelmed by it, and so we'll have lots of fun starting in a couple of minutes. I'm going to check the time. Yeah, 5 more minutes. So feel free to comment as we go. If you ever have any questions, just pause, write in the comment section. I will see them as we go, so I will answer as the class progresses. If you feel like I'm going too fast, you can always ask me to slow down a little bit. That happened in the last class, so that's totally fine. We have 35 people signed up for the class, so I don't expect that we'll have that many people tonight. The beauty with the virtual class is you can take it whenever, so like after today I'm gonna upload the video to YouTube, and then you can pretty much take it whenever you want, or if you even want to go back to it. Like if all 6 of your cookies came intact, no cracks, you could always use 3 and take the class again. And if you run out of icing, you can always make more icing if that's an option for you. So that is the plan. We're going to decorate 3 cookies, and then you have the 3 extra. Hopefully none of them broke in transit. I've been trying to package them very well. So, yep, that is the plan. So I don't think we'll have a whole lot of people tonight. Probably some people taking the class this weekend. So the cookies and the icings all last. I mean, you can freeze the cookies and they'll last for months, really. The icings will last up to 3 weeks. So if you don't use them, you can put them in a Ziploc bag. Just at room temperature, they'll stay good for 3 weeks. So do y'all have any questions for me before we get started? I'm at your mercy here. Oh, good. Jessica, my sister, so you did such a great job with packaging. Good. I tried my best, you know. You never know. Sometimes, like, have you seen those videos of, oh, goodness, what was it, like UPS? Like, somebody took a video of the guy, like, loading boxes, and he was, like, chucking them onto the truck. And then my father-in-law used to work for FedEx, I think it was, and he was saying that sure enough, like when the packages would come down this big chute, they would get like crushed. And I just, like, my eyes were like, oh my gosh. And so I really try to package really well because you really never know what could happen. So, all right. Can y'all hear me okay? In a minute, we're about to switch from here to, like, you won't be seeing my face anymore. You'll see the cookies. And so in a little bit, I'll switch over. And then you'll just kind of see, like, my workstation. So if you're on like a laptop, or like, I don't know where you guys are, maybe your phone, hopefully you'll be able to see it. I'm going to put it, right now it's long ways, I'm about to put it, what's that, landscape, and so you'll see just my workstation. Alright. So, make sure you have a pair of scissors. These are the only things that did not ship. So make sure you have a pair of scissors. And if you want to have like a water bottle near you or something to drink. And then that should be all that you need because everything else is included. And we are going to, I'm going to kind of set you up for the first 10 minutes. We're just going to talk about everything that's in your box, everything that you need to know up front. And then we're going to practice a little bit with the icings. And then we're going to get right into it. Again, I'm going to try to go at a very slow pace. I'm going to explain a lot. And if you're a little bit more advanced, it might feel kind of redundant or you've heard it before if you've taken a class with me before. But I did want this to be mostly just a beginner class. So that's why we're going to go a little bit slower. Okay? So does everybody have a pair of scissors? Yes. Okay. Alright, so give me just about 30 seconds to set this up. There might be some staticky kind of noises. Let me see if I can figure out. Alright. There we go. It says... Alright, so I'm going to check this on my view, so y'all should be able to see like my workstation here. Okay, so hopefully you can see my hand here. Now, is it upside down? I believe it probably, let me see. Okay, I might go ahead and flip it. I just want to make sure that it's set up the right way. Last time we had not really any problems with it, but then when I went to upload it to YouTube, it was kind of doing something crazy. So, is that okay for y'all, or is that like sideways view? If you're on a laptop, let me know in the comments. Turn it, okay. Alright, yep. So I'm in my cookie room. It's still portrait. So then what we're going to do is we are going to do portrait then. So, okay, everybody should have their box. Sorry. It's still sideways. Okay. Well, I did flip it, so I'm not sure. It's like funny because mine is delayed. Like I don't really see what y'all see. Okay, so if I'm like this, am I now, can you see me portrait ways just like I was with when you saw my face? Alright. If not, I'll just go ahead and explain and we'll figure out the rest. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to pull everything out of our box. So you should have got a cookie kit like this. Okay. So everything is going to come out of it, and then we're just going to explain kind of what is in it now, and then kind of what we're going to start working with first. So pull out, you know, everything, and then your icings and your cookies. And I have all the same stuff that you have. So, and I actually did, like all the icings that y'all have are the same ones. I got the same ones. They've been sitting around for a couple of days. So we are going to massage each one. Hopefully you read that in the instructions. Because what tends to happen is, like, especially for the thin ones, and I'll explain all of this in a little bit, but sometimes what can happen is the color will kind of like separate. So just kind of take each one and sort of like massage it if you haven't already, just for about, you know, I don't know, a few seconds, just to make sure it's all mixed in. You don't see any of that color kind of like separated from the icing. I think the brown one you can kind of tell. I don't know if y'all can see that. See how it's kind of, I don't know, separated? So you're just going to massage it for a little bit because we don't want that. When we put it on, if we don't massage it, it'll look kind of like splotchy. So that's why we're just doing that. So if you all want to just kind of go ahead and do that if you haven't done that already. And I'm going to make sure that you have what you need. I double checked everything, so you should. But you should have 3 cookies. We have an acorn, a leaf, and a pumpkin. Okay? And if you saw, obviously if you signed up for the class, you kind of saw what it looked like. Finished product. So that is the goal. But what I do is not necessarily, that's not the expectation. Everybody's are going to look different. And that is totally fine. It takes practice. I've been doing this for 6 years, I think. Maybe, yeah, 6 years. So my first cookies definitely do not look like my cookies do now, and that is okay. This is all about practicing. Don't be too hard on yourself if you are a beginner. It's all about having fun, learning it, and then if you like it, you know, you can keep practicing. Okay, so you should have 2 light browns. All right, one has a 1 on it. So what does that mean? The 1 is going to be a thicker icing. Okay, so the one that does not have a 1, you can kind of tell if you feel it, it feels definitely like thinner, right? And so this is going to be the one that we flood with. Flood is terminology when you outline it and then you go and put the thin one in, you're flooding it. And that all makes sense later. The thick one, the one that has a 1 on it, is going to be used for outlining and detailing. Okay, so it's a little bit thicker, a little bit harder to squeeze out, but it shouldn't be too thick that you like start to get a hand cramp. Sometimes that does happen, but it isn't like super duper thick. The one that is super thick is the green. So this is the only one that's like super, super thick. This one is going to be used for the leaves, so I intentionally made it super thick so that when you go to pipe the leaf, you can see like little like ruffles in it, and it'll keep it like that. It won't like spread together because it's so thick. You'll be able to see the defined lines in it, and it'll look really cool. That's like one of my favorite parts. Okay, you also have the orange, the thick one and the thin one. Okay, and then you have a yellow. This one is thin, so we're only using this color for the leaf. If you saw it in the picture, this one is going to go inside the leaf. That really cool. It looks complicated, but it's actually easier than it looks. And I'll make sense later as well. And then your dark brown, again, massage the thin one. Make sure all that icing is mixed up so that we don't get that splotchiness, all right, when it goes on the cookie. And then the thick one as well. And the last one is the beige. This one is also thick. Okay, this one is going to be used on the pumpkin at the end when we detail it. It's going to have these little like burlap strings, and so that's what that one is for. Okay, so everybody should have those. Now you have 2 napkins. Okay, you have a parchment paper. So what I usually say is for your parchment paper, this is going to be kind of like your workspace. So you're going to want to take your parchment paper and unfold it and just spread it out on your table or wherever you're at, because it does get messy. We're dealing with icing. So it does get kind of sticky, kind of messy all the time, no matter what. So this parchment paper is kind of just nice to work on when you're dealing with the icing. Okay, you also have 2 tipless bags. Okay, this is the same thing as these icing bags right here. Okay, so why did I give these to you? Well, for one, people just love them, so it's like a little freebie. But second, and this is really why I gave them to you, is if you end up cutting a hole that's too big, like let's say I say, okay, just cut off a tiny amount, and you go in and you cut like a huge chunk off. Well, then if you didn't have this bag, you'd kind of be like, oh, well, guess I can't use that color. So this would be for if you do cut it too big of a hole, you can always put it inside of this bag. Once that hole is cut, and you could squeeze it out, and then you'd have all the icing in the new bag, and you could recut the desired size of the hole that you need. Does that make sense? So just in case, right? Hopefully that doesn't happen, and then you have 2 freebie bags. Okay. Now you should have 2 toothpicks. These are used for popping air bubbles and spreading the icing, the flooding icing, the thin one, out into the outline. So when you go to put that icing in, you want to spread it, pop any air bubbles. That's what these are for. All right. So I am going to say right off the bat, this is what I always say in a class, in a person class. You're going to take all the ones that have a 1 on it. Okay, that line. So it should be, well, you're probably, I just realized, I think I accidentally used the beige one. The beige one doesn't matter, but it's the light brown, the dark brown, and the orange. So these are the thick icings. So just remember, these are thicker than the other ones of the same exact color. So you're going to want to differentiate these ones. Okay, so just kind of put them aside, like on the right or the left. I just kind of put them on the top for now, but put them on the right or the left and be like, okay, those ones are thick and these ones are thin. Because a lot of times what happens is people will say, I'll say, okay, use the thick light brown with the 1 on it. And in their mind, they'll go, okay, thick light brown, and then they'll grab the thin one. And so just remember, and I'll say it over and over and over again, but just remember when I say thick, you're going to grab the one that has a 1 on it. And then thin doesn't have any line on it at all. Okay? All right. So now we are ready to practice on our worksheet. So that means we're going to grab our scissors. Okay? So watch me first here. I'm going to grab, and I want y'all to grab the thick orange. But don't cut that hole in it yet. Okay? Especially if you're a beginner. Don't go cutting the hole yet, because it is very important that you get the right size hole, and that can sometimes be a little bit tricky. But I also want to teach you how to hold the icing bag and how to outline with it the proper way. Okay? So I'm trying to go slow, hopefully not too slow, but I do want to make sure y'all are ready like before we just go right into the cookies, because we do have an hour and a half, so I want to just take this time to really explain everything. Okay, so everybody should have the orange with the 1 on it. So you're going to hold right under the knot here, and it's going to go into your palm right where your thumb is. Okay, so everybody just take it in your hand, whichever hand is dominant for you. I'm right-handed. Okay, and so you're squeezing into the palm, and then a trick that I've been telling people is you kind of like press your thumb into the icing bag so that you kind of like press it more into your palm, and then you're going to let the hands or the fingers just kind of rest over. So a lot of times what I used to teach was, okay, squeeze from here and lay your hands over. So like this. That's an option too. What I'm finding is if I'm telling people to tuck their thumb in, it actually gives you a little bit more power when you're squeezing the icing out. So if you're a beginner, sometimes it's hard, you don't have the strength to just like hold it like this. So you can tuck that thumb in, lay the fingers over, and that'll help you out. All right, now on the other hand, the opposite hand, you're going to have your pointer finger right at the base of the tip. Okay, this is going to steady your hand, kind of control that movement a little bit. So I rarely just go like this without that. I take my finger here, and then all of a sudden I'm a little bit less shaky, and it helps just a little bit here. Okay? All right, and so we are squeezing from the top down. Make sure to be at the base, at the top of the icing. So you don't want to be squeezing here with icing up here. You want to be right at the top of the icing. Tuck your thumb in if that helps. Rest your fingers over, other pointer finger here. Okay, now, so I'm going to cut a little hole, and what I typically say in a class is, I have a pencil here because I always say you're going to cut the amount of a number 2 pencil lead. So, as a visual, if I have this here, right kind of where that lead, hopefully y'all can see that. I know it's kind of small, but right where the lead stops is about where you would want to cut it. So, I mean, you can always, I don't do this, I don't get a pencil and go, okay, that's where I'm going to cut. But just kind of for reference, that's about how much you want to cut. So, like, if I'm cutting my little hole, I'm pretty much, I know that's hard to see, but I'm pretty much right where that lead would be. I'm going to snip off. But remember, you can always snip off a little bit more. You can never take it back. Like, so if you cut too big of a hole, then you're going to have to transfer to the new bag. But if you cut a tiny hole and then you're like, oh, okay, that's too tiny, you can always cut a little bit more. All right. So now that you have your hole, I like to press it so when you cut it, you have like a flat piece. So then I take my fingers and I just kind of like create a little bit more seams on each side so that when you look at it, you see a hole and not just like a flat tip. Okay? So we're going to hold it just like I told you, like this, and we're going to practice on our worksheet. So you don't want this tip, this plastic tip should never touch the paper. Alright, so this is probably one of the hardest things, which is why we practice. But you actually want to be about 1 centimeter off of that paper, and you're letting that icing just kind of drag off of this piping bag and onto the paper. Trying to be nice and controlled. Again, if this is your first time, you might not have a lot of control, and that is okay. It definitely takes practice. But I find if we do the worksheet first, hopefully that increases your confidence to be able to do it on the cookie. So, go ahead and do the whole worksheet. So we're doing the lines, the squiggles, the circles, and the hearts. And you don't necessarily have to do like both sides if there's like 2 parts, but just go until you feel comfortable. And just noting, okay, ask yourself, is my plastic tip touching the paper? Am I letting the icing drag onto the paper? Am I holding it the right way? Do I have that other pointer finger steadying my hand? And just taking some time to practice. So, usually at this point I go around and check people's papers. But, obviously, in a virtual class I cannot see y'all. So, I'm going to assume that y'all are still doing okay. And my other tip is to know how much, like if you cut the right amount off, you want this orange line to be covering the black line underneath on the paper, okay? So if you cut too little, you're going to see that black line, and then you're going to want to cut a little bit more. And if you cut too big of a hole, well, you'll also know that because it will be way over the black line, or even covering like 2 of the straight lines on the top. That's not what we want. So if you're at the smaller point, of course you're going to cut off a little bit more. If you cut too much off, if it's like a little bit over the line, that's fine. Sometimes for beginners, I do say, it's okay to cut a little bit more, so that way you have like more of a outline to like be a barrier for that thinner icing. But for now, basically the standard is you want that line to pretty much perfectly cover the black line. And then hopefully the pencil trick helped. when you are going, oh, so there's a question. What if the icing is having trouble coming out? Yeah, sometimes that happens. So that's why the napkins are here. So if you're having trouble, just kind of wipe the tip off a little bit, or even like, squeeze out a little bit, make sure it is coming out okay. You might also need to make a little bit bigger hole if it's too small. Also, like I said, my icing is the same exact one that you have. So it could be that it's really thick and it might be hard because you're not used to this thick icing. So that's why I say tuck that thumb in to kind of like give you a little bit more strength to push the icing out. Did that help at all? Hopefully. If you have any other questions, let me know because I'm watching the comments. When you turn corners, sometimes you have to kind of slow down a little bit. Really use, it's a lot of hand-eye coordination, but also using that finger to help control. And take your time. If you go too fast, sometimes that icing line will break. Like sometimes people will be like, let me see if I can do it here. They'll go like too fast. I don't think I can like that, and then it'll break. So that's not what you want. So you want to go slow, like let that icing fall off. The other thing too with the outline, if you don't like it, even on the cookie, you can just wipe it away with a toothpick and do it again. Okay. I'm going to give y'all a little bit more time. Some of y'all are probably already done. That's okay. If you're still working, a little bit more time. My phone just let me know I have low battery, so I'm about to plug it in. Okay. And when you're finished with the worksheet, you can just set this off to the side. We will not be using this. It will not be graded. This is just for your own practice. If you want to wipe off all the icing and do it again later, practice with it, you can do that as well. But when you're done, go ahead and move it to the side. Okay. So with all the thick icings, we're going to cut them the same exact way. And the only ones that are a little bit different are going to be the thin icings and the green. But just remember, all of the ones that have a 1 on it, you're cutting it as if you were cutting off the amount of this pencil lead. Okay? And of course, I'll walk you through step by step. That is why we do these classes. Step-by-step instructions, so that you feel confident to be able to do it, and then you can keep practicing on your own or take more classes. Alright, so since we are working with the orange, the first cookie that we're going to start on is going to be the pumpkin. And so grab your pumpkin and put it right in the middle of your workstation. And again, we're going to be working with the thick orange. So you do not have one of these markers, but for kind of visual sake, I'm going to mark on my cookie with this edible marker to kind of show you what we're going to be doing on this cookie, because obviously this looks a lot different than the cookie that is on the website or on Facebook, the finished product, right? And so you're like, oh boy, how am I going to make it look like what I saw? So on the bottom you have these bumps, right? And I'm going to follow those bumps to make little sections of the pumpkin, okay? So again, you don't have this marker, but I am just going to show you sort of, and it might not be perfect, But we are going to imagine that this middle bump right here is going to be our entire middle oval section. Okay? So imagine in your mind, and this is kind of the hard part with cookie decorating, is you are making your own lines in your mind. Okay? And so we are going to, again, start at that little bump on the bottom, and you're going to come straight up to the top. That section is about 1 centimeter wide, and then you're going to come straight down to meet the bottom part where you started. Okay, so just start with that middle section right there with the thick orange icing. And again, if you do that part and you don't like it, this is pretty much the only time that you can wipe it off with your toothpick and redo it. So this part's it's hard, but it's also a little bit more forgiving. If you mess up, you can always wipe it off, do it again. Y'all still with me? So good? Trying not to go too fast. Okay, so same thing with this. Imagine now you've got 4 more little sections. So you go down here to the bottom of the pumpkin and you see another little bump right next to that middle one. You're going to start to the right of that section, the middle, and you're going to come down and you're going to come straight up and then meet the top of the middle section. Alright, so we're just kind of creating these little sections of the pumpkin like you would see in an actual pumpkin. You give it a little curve, so it's not like a necessarily super straight line up. It's kind of curved like an actual pumpkin would be. And there you have your second little section. And I'm sure that y'all know where this is headed. We are going to do 3 more sections just like that. So we have 1 more on the right, and then we're same thing on the left side, symmetrical, hopefully to the right side. So when you're ready, you're going to come down to the bottom, and this time you're going to go to the edge of the cookie. So we're trying to kind of get as close as possible to the edge without it falling off of the cookie. And the most important thing with the outline is just making sure that you don't have any breaks, you don't have any gaps, and that it's completely closed in, like even where this line meets the other line, you don't have any gaps at all. Because when you go to add the thin icing in, you don't want it to seep out or under or anything like that. You want it to be a complete barrier. Okay, so same thing on the other side. Sometimes what I do, if I'm right-handed, I'll kind of like rotate the cookie because I like my icing bag being on the right side, if that makes sense. But you could also, if you wanted to, if you don't feel like it's in the way, you can have it there. But just sometimes what happens is if I'm like this, I'll end up bumping the cookie with my hand, and then I mess up the icing outline that I tried so hard to do, right? So you can flip it upside down or, do whatever you would like. And then we're going to do the 4th section. So again, we're coming to that bump and then we're coming straight. And then meeting that middle section. Alright. And we're going to do that last section. Make sure it meets the other line. No gaps or breaks in that icing. So by the time you are done, you should have a pumpkin that looks somewhat like this, hopefully. And of course, if it's your first time and it does not look like this, Don't worry. As long as you can tell it's a pumpkin, we're good, right? All right. So, now that we have our orange orange outline, we're going to take the thin orange. So again, the one that does not have a 1 on it if you bought, your icings from me. Okay, and we're going to cut a hole that is a little bit bigger than our outline, but not too big. Okay, so we're thinking, all right, so if we cut like here, that was for the outline, so now we're just going to come like half a centimeter more and cut a little snip off. This icing is thin, so I'm not using it. I typically keep it upside down because if I'm holding it like this and just kind of waiting around, it will eventually leak out. So just be mindful of that. Hold it upside down when you're not using it. Okay, so here's a tip. When you want these sections to look defined, you don't go ahead and put icing in all 5 sections. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to do the outer sections, so these two, the outermost sections, and the inner section. And then we're going to wait for it to dry, and then in, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, we're going to come back and do the other 2 sections. Okay, so if you're a beginner, first time, watch me first. I'm going to let this icing come into one section at a time. I'm going to take my toothpick, I'm going to drag it out to the outline, I'm going to pop in air bubbles, and then I'm going to do the next section. Okay, I like to spiral out and then come in, spiral out and come in with the icing. I found that to be pretty the best thing to do. However, just make sure that you're not adding too much icing that it's going to overflood like over the cookie. And that's part of practice, just knowing how much icing do I put in so that it's enough that I don't see the cookie underneath, but it's not too much that it's overflooding over the cookie. Okay, so it really doesn't matter which one you do first. I'm going to do this right one. So again, this one is thin, so it comes out pretty easy. So you drop some in, and then you're going to take your toothpick, push it to the outline, pop any air bubbles. And sometimes it does kind of hide the mistakes that you might have made in the outline, which is a good thing. You only have about 2 minutes to spread that icing before it starts to harden. So at the moment, it's not a problem because this is such a small section, but just know if you have like a large area and you put it in, make sure you put enough that you're not sitting there for minutes spreading, because it will start to harden and you won't be able to spread it anymore. So like at this point, once it's all spread, I don't want to touch this piece at all because it's already started to harden. So if I were to poke this, it could potentially mess it up. And I know that sounds like very unforgiving, but it's 2 minutes. So you usually have enough time to spread it, get it, all settled, and then good. And then you just don't want to touch it at all. Okay? All right, so then we're going to do the middle section. All right. Again, I start on the outside, and then I kind of spiral in. Make sure you have enough that you're not sitting here forever spreading it, but you don't want too much that it overflows over this outline. Okay. So I'm about at like 30 seconds, so I'm good. I could, if I needed to, I could keep kind of spreading it a little bit, but then you'll start to feel like that icing will kind of like pick up with the toothpick. And then that's when you know, oh, okay, I need to stop. I need to let it, settle. Or I need to, if I need to, I can add more icing so that I can speed it up. And then once it starts to harden, you just want to be done and try not to touch it. then we're going to do the left side. The left section. Again, it's kind of a little bit hard, so if you wanted to rotate, if you're right-handed, you wanted to rotate it so that you don't have that risk of messing up the bottom part under your hand. You can do that too. It's a nice, pretty orange color. Happy fall. It was first day of fall on Monday. Even though the weather here does not show that it is fall, it is actually fall. And I'm looking forward to hopefully cooler weather soon, because that is my favorite. I think my favorite season is fall, but my favorite holiday is Christmas, but I love the fall season. Okay. So, hopefully, if you have gotten to this point, we're going to let it dry. Now, when we're going to work on another cookie and you're going to move this cookie just so that it's not in your way, you want to be very, very careful to not bump it, because if you, like I said, if you touch it, it will get messed up, and there's kind of no reversing it except to just scrape it off and do it again. So sometimes what I do is just take my toothpick and just like slowly, carefully move it over in a spot that I know it's not going to get messed up. Okay. So again, we're letting the pumpkin dry so that we get that definition of those sections. So once it dries, then we'll do the other two sections, and then when that dries, then we'll go and do the detail parts. All right. So let's do the acorn next. So we're going to have our acorn right in the middle, and we don't use orange for this one, of course, but the next one we're going to grab is the light brown with the 1 on it. Okay, so again, when you buy a cookie kit from me, the easiest way that I can differentiate between the thick and thin is the one that's thick has a line on it with the Sharpie. And so we're going to cut a little hole. Again, for reference, if you had a number 2 pencil, you are cutting off kind of right where that pencil lead ends. That's about how much you want to cut off. So when you cut off this little plastic piece, you want it to be about the size of a pencil lead. Okay. Let me know if I'm going too fast for those who have their kits with them and are taking the class. I'm trying not to go too fast. But after you clip it, just kind of press the sides a little bit so that when you look at it, you have a hole, circular hole, and not just like a flat piece of plastic. Okay. Test it to make sure it's coming out. And so what we're doing is this thicker part right here is going to be dark brown. This part down here is going to be the light brown. Okay? So, first step we're going to do, you're going to come right to where this cookie divots in, and we're just going to draw a line straight across to the other side where the other part kind of divots in. And again, this part is very, very forgiving. If you don't end up making a straight line or are not happy with it, again, you can just scrape it off, and it's as if it never happened. And then you can always do it again. Okay, so once you have that line right there, then we're going to go ahead and finish. We're going to come all the way down to the point, and then up. And again, we're trying to get as close to the edge of the cookie as we can without it falling off of the cookie. And sometimes you might have some little cracks in the cookie. I tried very hard. You know, you had 6 cookies, so I was trying to be very intentional that You did not get ones with cracks, but there might be like, you should have 3 that are good, and then you might have one that has some more cracks. I deal with cracks all the time, and it doesn't bother me, but I do sometimes just go in and put a little dot of icing where that crack meets the outline. I mean, it's not necessary, but it does, in my mind, and maybe it's just a mental thing, if I put like a little dot, then I feel like that icing is not going to seep under the crack, which I have had that happen before, but it was with like a very, very large crack, and I didn't give you guys any of those. And that just happens when they're rolled out, and sometimes that happens. So, okay. So you should have your little outline that looks like that. Okay, and then we have our thin light brown. So the one that does not have a 1, this one is going to go all inside of this outline. So I'm massaging it just to make sure that it's all mixed up and it's not going to be splotchy once I go. Alright, so remember it's a little bit bigger of a hole than that little outline. So, but not like too much, just a little bit bigger. And we're going to cut a little bit. So it looks about that wide of a hole. Kind of the width of a pencil. Yeah, that's what I used to say. I stopped saying that, but that's about right. Maybe a little smaller than the width of a pencil. Okay, and when you're ready, you're gonna let this all drop in. You're gonna start on the outside. We're gonna spiral. It doesn't have to be touching the outline. You can if you want to. Usually for these beginner classes, I don't do that. I just kind of get as close to the edge as possible. And then I take my toothpick. And what I do is, I kind of swirl the toothpick to help push it to the outline. And I found that to be a little bit more helpful than like just trying to push it to it. If I kind of swirl it a little bit, it goes a little faster. And then you want to pop any air bubbles if there are any at all. And then once it starts to kind of harden a little bit, again within about 2 minutes, you just want to leave it alone and try not to touch it. Okay. So this part of the acorn is actually not going to get any details. Like once it dries, that's it. I'm going to wait just a little bit in case we have some people that need some more time. But if you are done and you are a little bit ahead, then the next thing we're going to be doing is grabbing the thick dark brown. Okay. Y'all good? Hope everybody's having fun, learning a lot, hopefully both learning a lot and having fun. Okay, so this thick dark brown. Remember, it has the 1 on it. You're going to cut a tiny piece, just like the other ones that we did for the outline, about the width of a pencil, a number 2 pencil lead. Alright, and we're going to do this top part, not the top most part, but the middle section that divots out. And it really doesn't matter where you start. But we want to go, I'm going to start on the left-hand side. You're going to cut off that little stem and leaf part. Come straight across. And then meet the light brown. And I'm going to show y'all in a little bit sometimes what people will do. And this part is up to you. But so there's always the question, do I leave it like this, or do I want to take that dark brown and come right under or right above that light brown and kind of hug that part? The answer is there is no right answer. You can pretty much do whatever you want to do. Sometimes, like, if this one is white and like this one's a dark color, I will go ahead and add that extra barrier, because I'm trying to avoid bleeding, which sometimes will happen. Like the darker color will seep into the white, but since these are both brown, it really is not a problem. But I'll do it if anybody desires to do this. But you again would just hug this light brown outline. All right. And we are actually gonna wait to flood this part right here, like just a couple minutes, because again, I want this part to dry as much as possible before I add this, because if you don't, sometimes they'll just kind of like come together, and I really want that definition between this and the bottom part. So what we can do is we can do the little stem. So you'll see up here there's like sort of like a little bump out here. That's going to be a leaf, okay? And then this part is going to be the stem. And you can do this in either a dark brown or light brown. I did it advertised, I did the light brown. So I'm going to do the light brown today, since that was what was advertised. Okay, so you can either start on the left bottom or the right bottom. The right bottom might be easier because you already have a very clear starting point. It's just at the edge of the cookie and right next to the dark brown. So we're going to start here. Okay, so I'm going to go out. This part's easy because you can see. But then here, I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. I'm just going to come down because there's going to be a leaf there anyway. So like this whole part's going to be covered. Alright, once you have the outline, and I messed up right here. I'm kind of like working, like, I'm like looking at my cookie from like under my phone, so it's sometimes really difficult to like see what I'm doing. But we're going to take the thin light brown. So once you have this section, the top section outlined, then we're going to take the thin and do just like we've been doing, outside, and then spiral in. Grab your toothpick, push it to the outline. Sometimes people kind of like to cover the outline a little bit, so they'll push the thin icing sort of like over the outline to kind of like hide it. So there's not necessarily like a right or wrong way. Sometimes people don't want to see the outline, and then sometimes you can clearly see the outline. I don't know, I kind of like to push it out over the outline, but I'm not like super particular. Like if I can see the outline, I don't get upset, basically. Okay. So does everybody have these three sections right here? You should have the bottom in light brown with the flooded light brown inside. You should have the outlined dark brown in the middle. No icing in it yet. And then the top part should be that flooded light brown. We are going to let these dry a little bit. Okay, so how about we carefully move it over. And then we go back to our pumpkin. So be very careful when you move these. You don't want them to bump into anything. Okay, so if we have our pumpkin in front of us, don't touch it, but you should be able to notice that it's hardened a little bit. It looks a little less shiny. And that's how we know that the top coat is drying, and it's dry enough that we can add the other sections and it'll still look like very defined parts. Okay. Y'all good? Anybody want to comment? See how y'all are doing? I don't want to be going too fast. Okay, so what are we doing now? So we have the thin orange icing. Remember that this one does not have a 1 on it, or a line. We're going to drop it into these remaining 2 sections. It doesn't matter which one you do. Again, we're just coming outside first, dropping in some icing, and then taking this toothpick, we're going to push it towards the other sections, but we don't want to like overlap too much. I mean, it's okay if it kind of like goes on top of it a little bit, but what you should see is it still kind of like keeps that definition. Like you can tell this one is not going to just mesh into that one. It's not going to run into it. When it dries, it'll look like very defined pieces, which is kind of how a pumpkin is, right? Okay, I'm going to do the other side. The last class that we had was the LSU football one. We had 67 people sign up, and I think about 20 of them did the class, or maybe it was 25, did the live version of the class like this. And then the rest of them, which was pretty significant amount, so like 40 of them did it with the YouTube video. And then like I edit this video and I go and add it on YouTube, and then you can like, you know, play and pause. So if you do find that this is kind of fast paced and you want to do another class in the future, you can always wait for the YouTube version, and then you can kind of like fast forward, go back, pause, play, go at your own pace. All right, okay, so when you have the 2 sections here, your orange part of your pumpkin is done, but we're not finished with this cookie yet. So we, again, are going to let it dry. It's a lot of steps. It's like, do this, let it dry. Okay, go back to it. Typically when I'm doing an actual order, I wait overnight. So like I would do, like let's say I had 2 dozen. I would do the 30 sections, wait 30 minutes, go back and do the other ones. And then the next day, like that was nighttime, then the next morning I would go in and do all the details. So obviously we don't have that kind of time, so in like an hour and a half class, we just wait as long as we can, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you still get those very defined sections, which is awesome. But this next cookie, the leaf, we are actually gonna start and finish this cookie all in one setting. So sometimes you have those things as well. Okay, so carefully move your pumpkin over. Try not to bump it or move it too fast. And then this one is going to be fun. I hope it'll be fun for y'all. Okay. I'm actually going to do the entire, well, I'm going to outline and y'all can outline it as well, but then like once we go to add in all the color, I'm going to do all of that and then kind of show you what we're going to do and then let y'all do it. But if you see me do it first, it'll make more sense than if you're trying to like follow like as I do it. But you can do the outline part, we can do this one together. So we have the light brown thick icing, which has the line on it. So grab your light brown thick icing. And this one's pretty easy because we're just going to outline the entire part of the cookie. Now, the hard part is that there are a lot of points, a lot of turns. It's very jagged. So what I do for, like, if I turn a corner, I'll show you instead of like just saying it, but let's say, like, so I do the stem. You kind of dip down as you turn a corner, and then you do that straight line. And then when you touch the tip, you're going to kind of dip down and then pull back up. Dip down. So if you have like a point, see, I already messed up, of course. When you have a point, you dip down and then you pull it back up. And then again, if you mess up, you can always scrape it off. But you don't have to do it in like one, you don't have to do the whole outline in one continuous move. If you want, you could do a line. Once you get to that point, you could stop. See, I keep messing up. This always happens when I teach a class. I always mess up. Okay, you could do a line and then you could stop and pause. And then you could say, okay. Sometimes it makes people stressed out. You can go, okay, I'm going to do this line first. I'm going to do this line next. And then stop. You could take it, one line at a time. Or if you're feeling good, you can kind of keep moving. Just kind of squeeze a little extra icing as you reach like a tip, a point, or a corner. Okay, so there's a lot going on here, so go at your own pace. Alright, so we're gonna, and you can start and stop, you can wipe it off if you need to, but we're just trying to go with the outline of the cookie. Lots of points. This is the hardest part of the cookie. The flooding part on this one's pretty easy, I think. And of course, just make sure that you don't have any like gaps in that outline. Kind of look at it, make sure you have an entire outline. Yeah. If you have any cracks right at the base of the outline, you can just drop in a little dot of icing. Okay, I'm going to give y'all a little bit more time on that if you need it. If not, then just kind of hang tight. Let's see. We are, what time is it? It is 7:56. We are doing all right. This class is scheduled to go until 8:30. So, and I think that'll be about right. I think we'll be done right at 8:30. We're gonna, in a little bit, we're gonna take a little break, and we're gonna do a couple of door prizes. Yay! Okay. So, for this next part, we want to make sure that we have everything that we need, because we are going to basically be dropping in 3 colors and then taking our toothpick and kind of like making little designs with the wet icing. So we want to have all thin icings. We have the thin light brown. Okay, so you want to have that ready. We want the thin orange, and we want the thin yellow. The yellow has not been cut yet, so we're going to need to cut that. And again, this is the thin yellow, so you cut a little bit bigger than that outline. Okay, and so then once you cut it, then that one is ready to go as well. So what we're going to do, and we're going to have brown is going to be first. We're going to just drop in, I don't know, about a centimeter's worth. Okay, and then we're going to do the orange, like right next to the brown, and we actually don't want any gaps. So this one, is going to be a little tricky in the sense that you want to get all that color in, and then you're going to do the orange right up next to that thin light brown. No gaps in between. I mean, if you do, don't worry about it, don't stress it. Then we're going to do yellow is going to be the third color, and then the middle is going to be another brown dot, okay? And then you're going to take your toothpick. This is why I'm going to do it first, and you watch me, and then y'all do it. But then you're going to take, so then you'll have like literally like 4 colors just kind of like spiraled around. Then you're going to take your toothpick, and everywhere that it divots in, so the points that go in on the outline of the cookie, you're going to take your toothpick, and you're going to drag it towards the middle. And then every part that goes out, you're going to take your toothpick and you're going to drag it out. So it's going to kind of like combine the colors and make it look kind of like tie-dye. I'm going to have my napkin on hand because I don't want to like, if I do it in one fell swoop, it's not going to look as clean. Like all the color will still be on my toothpick, and so it'll all just kind of be like blah. So I come in, I wipe it, I go out, I wipe it, and it's going to be kind of tedious, but trust me, it'll look great. Okay, so here I go. Y'all can watch me first. If you feel really confident, you can go for it. It's going to take me some time. So I'm going right to the edge, and I actually might do 2 on this one. Alright, then you got the orange. We're going to go right next to it. No gaps. And then the yellow. Right next to the orange. And then the brown. Okay. Now, this is when you're going to go, okay, drag it in, wipe, drag it out. Wherever it divots in, you drag it in. Wherever it goes out, drag it out. There is no necessarily like wrong way to do this. You kind of just keep like dragging till you think it looks good. You've got a couple minutes before it really like starts to harden. And so, and even with this one, you could keep pulling even when it's hardening. It really doesn't matter that much. And as I'm pulling, I'm going to kind of make sure that icing is into the outline. So it's kind of fun. Sometimes you have to like kind of like keep pulling it out or pressing it in and be like, this would look good if it was pulled out, or, you know, just kind of like play with it. But just think like tie-dye. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? And so every time that I'm doing it, I'm just kind of like wiping that toothpick. And as you can see, it's starting to harden a little bit. So I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, okay, good thing I'm done because it's starting to harden a little bit. Okay. So, not perfect, but it looks fun. It looks cool. It looks like tie-dye a little bit. And then I'm done. Alright, so I can imagine that some of y'all might be like laughing right now, like, I don't know if I can do that. Well, you do have 2 cookies, so that's a good thing. So if you mess up, you've got another cookie that you can do. And again, like, I'm still working on it, even though I know that it's already kind of hardened, but I'm still kind of pulling a little bit. So you have a little bit more time. You don't just have that 2 minutes. Like, don't worry about it. Just kind of like, do it till you're like, okay, that looks pretty. And I'm going to give y'all some time to do this. So, go ahead and start if you haven't already. You've got light brown, orange, yellow, light brown. We're pulling that toothpick out to the points, And then everywhere where it kind of comes in, pull it in. And then if you're taking the class live, whenever you finish, let me know how this was for you. If you liked it, if you hated it. About a year ago, last Thanksgiving, I did a class where we did a leaf, and it wasn't quite like this. It was a little bit different. But this actually ended up being like people's favorite cookie. And I was like, I wasn't expecting that, because we did like some really like challenging cookies that was like the simplest one we did, and everybody was just like, that one was so much fun. They just loved like pulling the icing and like making it look like tie-dye. So I'm kind of curious to see what y'all think. But if whenever you finish, just kind of let me know so that I can know that I'm good to move on. And again, once that icing starts to harden, you can always drop some more in if you haven't, like if it's kind of at the outline, you can drop a little bit more in to kind of like speed it up if it's not dragging properly. But I think it looks super pretty. Well, I think this one is really fun. Kind of looks like fire, that orange part. Yeah, if your icing is drying too quick, put more icing on the next one. Or like so you should have 2 cookies. So if you don't like the way that the first one turned out, you can do the second one, or you can even just like totally wipe off the icing from the first cookie and do that one again. But you have to put enough like on there. You want it to be like a little pillow on top of the cookie. And so the more you have, like the less quick it'll dry, and then you kind of like can press, but you do have to work a little bit quickly. Yes, it will start to dry as you're working on it. But you can always do it on the second cookie as well. And then as you do it more, you'll get quicker too. Like I was probably quicker than y'all, and even my icing was starting to harden, so that's probably a good indicator that it will harden, so you have to move kind of quickly. Okay. But once you finish the leaf, this cookie is like completely done. So this is the first one that we have finished for the night. Yay! And we started and stopped this one in one setting. For most cookies, you're going to have some details. It's not going to be the case where you will start and stop like all in one sitting. But we're going to do one more thing before we take a quick break, and that is the acorn. So if you're still working on your leaf, don't worry, but you can catch up on this break if you need to, but we're gonna put this thin dark brown icing all inside of this middle section. Okay, so all right, cut a bigger hole than the outline one, and we're just flooding this middle part. So if you're a bit behind, keep finishing up your leaf, and then once you finish that, do this part, and then we'll be doing a little door prize, and after that, then we're gonna finish detailing these, and then that'll be it for the night. And of course, if you have any questions, you can comment, or if you want to email me, or message me on Facebook. You can do that instead. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have, let me see. I have names of everybody here who signed up for the class, and if there was, like, you know, some people that ordered multiples, I included those people as well. So if, you know, one person ordered 4, then their name got 4 because they have 4 people that are taking the class. But I have a list of people. I think I'm gonna switch this back over to me real quick. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So the door prizes for today. So I always do little door prizes just as a little thank you. The door prize is going to be half off either your next virtual class or my Halloween class that I'm doing in Baton Rouge. It'll be October 30th, and I have 2 times. I have 5:30 and 7 p.m. So if you're in Baton Rouge and you want to come to that, you will receive a promo code. And my dad said, "Love the leaf." Awesome. So you'll receive a promo code and you will get 50% off of either the in-person class in Baton Rouge or another virtual class. So that's a pretty sweet deal, I think. Hopefully you think so too. And we have 2 lucky winners who are going to win this. And the first one is, I'm doing a random name generator here. Okay, so the first person is going to be Delaney Brown. Delaney Brown, you got 50% off. All right, nice. Congrats. I don't know if she's here or not. All right, and the next person is Jeff Sabotin. You got 50% off a virtual class because I know you're not in Baton Rouge. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to do one more because I love door prizes. All right, you ready for one more? Let's see. Lucky person is Amanda Blanchard, who she has been a follower of mine for a very long time, so I'm happy. Yay! Okay, so you 3 winners, I will send you an email with a promo code, and if you did not win, I'm sorry, but you can still sign up for classes, and I'm coming to Baton Rouge. I've got my Halloween class. Yay, Amanda was here. I love when they like comment like, yay, because then I know that they won and they were taking the class. Awesome. Okay. I do have, I'm going to do a Thanksgiving and a Christmas virtual class. I haven't advertised it yet. I'm still trying to work out the designs. So if you do like this class and you want a little bit more of a challenge, those are not going to be beginner. They're still good for beginners, but they're going to be a little bit more intermediate. All right, are you all ready to finish the cookies detailing? Let's see, we have 15 minutes. So I'm going to flip it back over and we are going to detail. So I'm going to show you how to do the leaf with the green. The leaves are really fun. It's all in the way that you cut them. So I will take you, hopefully I'm going to explain it very clearly how to cut it so that you get a leaf that looks like a leaf and not something crazy. We're going to do the leaf on the pumpkin, the stem, and then the like beige sort of like ties on the pumpkin. And then the acorn is going to get a leaf and then some lines that are going to go on the middle part. Okay, and then that'll be it. And then you can eat them or enjoy them tomorrow or this weekend. Sometimes they taste better the next day. Just saying. Okay, so just give me 1 minute. I'm going to flip it back around. Okay, here we go. So I had said we were going to do the pumpkin. So we are going to do the pumpkin. right, so the pumpkin stem is, I think I advertised it as the light brown, but you can also do the dark brown if you like the darker color. Either way, whichever one you choose, you want to make sure that you have the icing that has a line on it. Okay, and this is pretty easy. It's just going to be, we're just outlining the top, so we're going to come right to where the orange is, and we're going to go up, across, and down. Just making sure that we have a complete connection from the brown to the orange, no gaps there. Okay. And then once you have done that, we are going to just drop in. It's very small, so you're only going to need like a little drop of this icing. Okay. So we just drop in a little bit. And then, of course, like we've been doing, take our toothpick and pull it out to the outline. That should have been pretty easy. It's a tiny spot. Okay, so you know how I said, typically when I'm doing an order, I would let this dry for like 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours. With that being said, we are not going to wait that long. We're just going to go ahead and put the lines, the beige lines on top. However, you are going to want to just kind of put it on the top, and you don't want to touch this icing bag like to it, because the top layer is dry but underneath is still wet. Okay, so try not to smush into it. We're just gonna like lay it on top very carefully, and then hopefully, you know, we're not gonna mess it up. But we haven't worked with the beige yet, so that means it doesn't have a hole in it. All right, so we want a small hole, and maybe even smaller than the outline. Okay, so think of like a little piece of string. And that's kind of what we're wanting this to look like, is a little piece of string, and so we don't want it too big. However, you can always cut a little bit, and before you do it on the cookie, kind of test it and make sure that that's like the right width that you want. Mine is, so I'm happy with that. Now, as advertised, we are drawing 2 lines across. And then wherever the lines meet is where the bow is going to go. So I'm going to show you away from the cookie. So if you want to practice on your parchment paper, you can. But imagine you have your cookie, little pumpkin, I don't know. And then we're going to go 1 line across. I kind of do it at a diagonal, and then another line across, but wherever I meet them is where the bow is going to go. So if I say, okay, I want them to cross right there, that's where my bow is going to go. Okay, and then for the bow, so if you're practicing on your parchment paper, it's just 2 diagonal lines, and then I squiggled. So I didn't do like a perfect teardrop. I actually kind of do like, as I'm kind of doing the bow, I'm sort of like squiggling. You don't have to do that, but I think it looks cute. And then I'm going to squiggle like the little strings from the bow, squiggle them down. Okay, so if you practice off of the cookie first, then you'll feel better to do it on the cookie, because you only get 1 shot. You only get 1 shot on the cookie. Once you do the details, if you mess up, there's really kind of no changing it or reversing. You can't just like pick it off. because if you were to pick it off like I'm doing here, you would mess up the base of the cookie, the orange pumpkin. So if you practice off of the cookie, then it increases your chances of having a better outcome on the actual cookie. So, same thing, I'm going to do it on the cookie. Okay. So make sure you're taking your time. Don't go too fast. Let that icing drag off of your tip onto the cookie. So we do our first line. And then our second line. You want the second line to overlap somewhere on the first line. And wherever they kind of like meet in the middle, we're gonna do that little bow. The bow can look however you want it to look. But you have one circle and the other circle. Okay, and then we're gonna come to the middle, squiggle the little pieces of the burlap or bow. And if you want, you can add a little dot in the middle. I can't remember if I did that last time or not. It's up to you. It gives it a little bit more definition. You just kind of spiral a little dot, little circle. Okay. How is everybody doing? How are our bows? This is the part where things kind of can tend to fall apart or get discouraging, and this is the hardest part. I definitely believe that anybody can do the outline and the flooding, but it's the detailing that is the hardest part, and I think the part that people pay for is, you know, when they're getting a custom order, they will pay for the detailing part because that is the hardest. But if you're not happy with how it looks, you have your second cookie. If you want to do that later, you can try the bow again. Because at this point, you can't really like pick it off, unfortunately. Okay, we do have the leaf, but we're gonna wait until our acorn is ready. Okay, so we're gonna do our acorn. So we want the thick, dark brown. So you have a light brown, you have a dark brown. We want the thick, dark brown. There's two details. So we're doing these we're gonna do like little lines, crisscrosses kind of. They're gonna sort of look like X's, but it's gonna be 4 lines diagonal in one direction, and then you're gonna do 4 lines diagonal in the other direction. If that sounds too complicated, you can also do like do an X, do an X, do an X, do an X, like 4 large X's. I don't know, because I did it the first time. I did 4 lines and then 4 lines, but now I'm starting to think that the X's might be best. How about I do lines, and then if you want to wait and see what the finished product looks like, then you can decide if you want to do the X's or not. But just make sure you have the thick, dark brown. So 4 lines. So we want these 4 lines to go across. So kind of at a diagonal, you're going to start at the bottom. You're going to do 1 line. Boom. And then about 1 centimeter over, Gonna do the second one. And it really does not have to be perfect spacing, but just let that icing just kind of fall onto the cookie. Try not to press it into the cookie. So there are our 4 lines one way, and then the other ones are going to be coming this way. So it's going to look like an X. That one line, the one line that you just did meets the other line that you did before, and then vice versa. So you're creating these little like diamonds. Does that make sense? So you could do like lines, X's or lines, or you could do something totally different. It really doesn't matter. Or if you don't like the big ones, you could come back and you could add like more lines if you want like tiny X's. But we're just trying to keep it simple. Okay. So again, yours might not look like mine. Yours might even look better than mine. I've had that happen a couple of times where somebody in the class actually did better than me. And then I tried to hire her and she said no. All right. She actually did. That same person, she's taken 4 classes from me, and she was just in the last class. Her cookies always turn out great. So add your own artistic flair whenever you want to. All right, the last thing on here before the bow. We are going to do a little spiral on the top to kind of, so right now it kind of looks like, you know, simple. But when we go to add this little spiral, we will give this stem a little bit more definition. Okay. I'm looking at the picture that I advertised. Make sure. Okay. Yep. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to start outside and spiral in. So you can pick any spot here. I kind of went like right under, sort of like here where it kind of like protrudes out a little bit. Started kind of right under that. You're going to come down, go to the side, and then we're just going to spiral in like 1 or 2 times. That's it. So it just kind of gives it a little bit, you know, something extra. All right. Now for the fun part, the leaf. And we have a couple minutes to do it. All right, this is very important. This is all in the way that you cut it, like I said. Okay? So make sure you have your green. All right, and I'm going to walk you step by step how to make this look like a leaf. Okay? So on your bag, you're going to locate the seam of the bag. It's a little line. Okay, once you locate that seam, you want that seam to be facing you right down the middle of your icing bag. Okay? So it's facing you and it's right down the middle. All right, now you're going to press the tip flat. So you're kind of going to push some of this icing away so that your icing bag is flat right at the tip. Because we do that because when we go to cut it, we want both sides to be symmetrical. So if you have, like, say you cut it and you have some air or icing in there, when you cut it, it's not going to be symmetrical. So you want it to be flat. Push some of the icing back. We still have that seam facing us right down the middle. Okay, now we're gonna cut it. You're gonna do 2 cuts. The first one is gonna go from the right side. I'm not gonna cut it yet, I'm just gonna explain it. But from the right side to that seam. And then you're gonna do the exact same thing. You're gonna cut from the left side to the seam, and you want it to be symmetrical. So if you start, like if you cut like a centimeter away from the tip, you want to be a centimeter away from the tip on the other side as well. Okay, now the smaller the better, because if you're here and you cut like all of this off, your leaf is going to be as big as the cookie, and you're not going to be able to make a leaf the way that you want it to. Which you can always, if you do that is probably going to happen to at least one person. You can put it in the extra bag that I gave you and try it again. But start small, so we have it flat. We're going to cut from the outside into the seam on one side. And then you're going to cut from the other side to the seam, which is hard when I'm facing this way. Okay. And you want them to be symmetrical. So you're going to have a little tip like this. Seam down the middle, pointy top, and then you're going to have your 2 edges here. Okay, now you're going to hold it just like a regular icing bag. However, you're not going to be like straight up. You're going to tilt your wrist down so that your bag is sideways. So instead of it being like from top down, it's going to be from the side out. Okay? So I'm going to practice right here on this paper. So again, your hand is laying flat like this. You can see your fingernails, you can see the seam, and then you're going to squeeze and pull straight out. Squeeze, pull straight out. So what happens is we get that pointy tip, like a leaf. And then if you want, you can squeeze and pull, and kind of give it some like definition. All right. I actually cut my bag a little big. I did exactly what I told you not to do, but it's not detrimental. I'll still be able to do my leaf. However, if you'll have a little bit more time, like when I leave y'all, and you can transfer it to a different bag if you need it to be a little smaller. So practice on your parchment paper first, and then we're going to take the acorn, and right where that spot is for the leaf, I have it upside down because whichever way I'm coming out, I just don't want there to be cookie right there because I don't want to mess it up. And also, like, if I had it right side up, then I'm awkwardly like coming like over here with my hand over here, like my arm over here. It's just like a lot harder. So we're gonna have one leaf. So you're gonna start at the base of the stem, and you're gonna pull and squeeze, and then pull all the way to get that tip of the leaf right there. Okay. If you don't like it, you can scrape it off and do it again. Alright. But it's as easy as that. It's pretty easy, it's just all in the way that you cut it. If you want to add like multiple leaves, you can do that as well. Like if I say, oh, I think I want to have like another one. Then it gives a little bit of dimension. You've got like a couple layers of leaves. And this cookie is finished. So you have 2 out of 3 complete. Good job. The last one, the pumpkin. This one, the leaf is over here on the right. If you noticed, there was like a little bit of a pointy part right here. on the right side of the pumpkin, that's where the leaf goes. You can make your leaf big or small, or you can do little like ruffles, but it's just gonna go right there. If one doesn't look, if you're like, oh, I think I want to add another leaf, you can, keep doing that. Add a couple of leaves if you want. Sometimes I kind of pinch the end if I feel like it wasn't pointy enough. Okay. Wow, that is all. It flies by when you're decorating cookies, the time just flies by. Okay, I'm gonna flip it over to me one last time. Okay, so again, I just want to say thank you, and I hope that you had fun. If you have any comments, any feedback, message me on Facebook, Instagram, or email me. And I hope you had fun. Enjoy. The cookies will be good for a few days. If you want to keep them for longer than that, go ahead and put them in a little Ziploc bag, and they'll stay good for another 2 weeks to 3 weeks sometimes. But enjoy, and thank you, and I will hopefully see y'all for another class. I will email the promo codes to you lucky winners. All right, thank you, and have a good night. Bye.